Hello and welcome back to my channel, Blue Nose Trading. My name is Tori Solis and today I'm unplugging my kiln for safety because it's finally time to change out my elements. I've been putting this off for far too long. I actually waited for my kiln to literally error code out because I didn't want to do this. It should be said that this is not a how to change your kiln elements video. This is just me sharing the experience of my first time changing out my elements. I hardly made it out alive, so I'm not at a point to give any great advice. To start, I'm going to open up the panel of my kiln for the first time ever. This part was super easy. I simply had to remove a few screws and the panel swung open on a nice hinge to reveal an intimidating amount of kiln wire pasta. I decided to take the elements one at a time so I didn't get the wiring confused when I went to reconnect the new elements. I started with the top element. Using wire cutters, I disconnected the top element from the wires at the insulator. I opened up my box of fresh elements to find, to my immense relief, they are labeled as either center or top-bottom elements, which is important because they're slightly different lengths and are pre-crimped and pre-stretched to fit into the grooves of my kiln-specific design. I'm going to be changing out the entire set of elements because it's best practice to do them all at once. You could just change out one, but if I'm unplugging and opening up this beast, I'd rather get it all out of the way. But don't worry, my camera will die way before I'm done because this took an entire dang day to get done and I didn't want to chop down 8 hours of video anyway. With the elements disconnected from the wiring, it's time to remove the elements from the channels. They're held into the channels with pins, so I had to remove the pins with needle nose pliers and then gently pull the old elements out of the channels. These elements were so done that they basically disintegrated when I was pulling them out of the channels. If you look at the new elements compared to the old element, you can tell that the old ones are super worn out and just done with life. The new elements come with these loops that need to be cut off so you can feed the wire through the hole to connect the wires. Once the big straight part of the element is fed into the hole for the wires, it should be a somewhat simple process to follow the pre-crimped portions of the element to slot back into the element channel grooves. As I'm placing the new element into the channel, I'm going to be using needle nose pliers to insert new pins to hold the element in the channel. I can say for certain that there are way more pins going into this element job than the factory used for theirs. I'm doing my best to slot the elements into the channels evenly, but despite my best efforts, it's still a bit goobery. But what can one really expect from their first crack at something? I'm trying to be careful and take my time because I don't want to mess up the brick or the grooves in my kiln. For the most part, the new elements slotted into the grooves well, and the pre-crimps more or less fit as they needed to. Like I said, it's a little bit goobery and not perfect, which makes me kind of crazy, but it is what it is. The main thing I ran into was the elements not wanting to sit in the grooves properly. They're in the channels, but they're a little wonky and don't sit perfectly flat. I'm sure that's my fault somehow, but it's an incredibly frustrating process, and I'm just glad I got it done. Once I finally got the elements slotted into the channels and pinned down, it's time for me to readdress the spaghetti box of wires to reconnect the element to the wires on the box. Because I'm doing these one element at a time, it made it a lot less complicated to do the reconnection, but I still messed it up in the first go anyway. You have to slide the element wire through the ceramic insulator and then cut the wire at a length that leaves enough space to put this stupid crimp onto the element and the connecting wire. I will need to strip back the connecting wire with electrical pliers to have a bit of exposed wire to insert into the crimp connector. There's a section on these electrical pliers that's made for crimping the element connectors. And let me just say, getting these gosh dang connectors to crimp without the element wire or the electric wire sliding out is the biggest pain of this entire process. It takes a good deal of force to get the connector to crimp properly, and there's nothing more annoying than thinking you have the connector securely crimped for the dang wire to slide right out. And if the connector is partially crimped when it slides off, it's really hard to get the wire back into the now smaller hole. I really wish they'd included extra crimp connectors because the set came with exactly as many as I needed, and it was really difficult to make the ones I bunked up work properly. It would have been a lot easier to start with a fresh connector, but I didn't have that option. Another challenge was getting the right angle and leverage needed to get the force on the crimp without messing up other wires. You have to snake the pliers into the spot you need them and hope you aren't cutting something else or pulling something else loose while you work. Overall, a major headache. This becomes increasingly difficult as you work your way down to the middle and bottom elements, and sure, there are people out there who have a lot of experience with this stuff and find it easy peasy, but for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people who are only potters and not electricians, it sucks, okay? It sucks. After finishing the top element, I just work my way down the kiln from top to bottom, disconnecting and replacing one element at a time. The further you get down the kiln, the more difficult it becomes to see what you're doing and the harder it is on your back. Changing out all of my elements ended up taking me 8 hours, and I ended the day with an ibuprofen and some mental decompression to shake off the frustration of the entire ordeal. All that being said, I will absolutely be waiting for my kiln to error code again before I change my elements again, because it is one of the most unpleasant tasks I have done as a potter. I would rather wedge clay for 8 hours than change my elements. Now mind you, it can be done, and if I can do it, you can do it. I'm not saying you're going to enjoy it, but hey, you might. I didn't, but that's besides the point. Changing elements is a necessary part of keeping my kiln running, so if it needs to be done, it will get done. But I don't look forward to it by any means. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching me struggle today. If you need a video for how to change out your elements, pretty much every kiln manufacturer has a great step-by-step video where they make it look like the easiest thing in the whole world that you can go find and watch. I recommend that you do one element at a time so you don't get your wiring mixed up, as it can be really confusing. I couldn't imagine how confusing it would be if all the wires were dangling out in space randomly to be reconnected all at once. If you do make that mistake, there are wiring diagrams you can reference to try to figure it out, and I wish you all the best of luck with that. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you'd like to help support my channel for early video access, you can become a channel member right here on YouTube. If you'd like to see all the ceramic work I currently have available, you can check out my work at bluenosetrading.com. Thank you so much for sticking around until the end of the video. Remember that you have great ideas that are worth exploration, drink enough water, and I will see y'all in the next video.